Welcome back, Chris.
Here we are.
We're back. Episode 8, baby. Let's get it.
Let's go.
Hey, so I got some energy today.
I can tell.
I'm fired up.
I'm feeding off of it, man. I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
Here we are, man. Episode 8 of the Market Matters podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Christopher Martin. And
I am Sam Maurer. Yeah, that's me.
that's it. That's what's on the birth certificate, baby.
That's right. Samuel Greg Maurer, to be exact. But we go by Sam Maurer over here. Awesome. But yeah, I got some energy going. It's like we got business right before the podcast. So it's a great
literally in these chairs as we're about to hit record.
Phone,
which is a
agent,
good day.
Connect, boom. Beautiful. Love to see it. But
Good day.
But yeah, let's get her going. I mean, market update. What you got for us, Chris?
So as always, love to go over the real estate stats with you guys. As you know, we're here in lovely Northern California, so we're going to specifically talk about our local market. Sacramento, Placer, and El Dorado counties specifically is the ones we like to talk about. That's the ones we like to serve the most. Mm-hmm. So let's jump in to month data. So talking about, we just finished up March. We're into early April right now. Today's the 3rd of April. So we'll talk about
crazy.
Yeah,
It's April already.
First quarter's done. Yeah.
That when you said that
when you say it like that, yeah. When I think of it like that, it just goes
now it
right.
just makes me feel like I need to be paying quarterly taxes.
Oh yeah.
You're calling me out.
Oh God, yeah. Tax season, by the way, we got to get those wrapped up if you haven't. So
yeah, reminder.
So
stressed out already.
So February to March, we'll talk about all of March since we've got that. So we're looking at for sale. So data here, we're down about 6%. That was actually listed on the market.
Okay, so that's
for
listed
sale
on the
for sale
market.
listings.
Okay.
So
that's tough.
Slight dip in listings. However, the actual sold is almost a 20% increase from last month. So
there it is.
Not to say we told you so, but here's the spring market, which
It's
that's
happening.
not new to people that are in the industry. We understand,
No.
but seasonality is back, and I think you can't argue with the data there. So
Yeah,
there we go.
It's crazy. I mean, it's like, we put an offer in over the weekend. We got it accepted, but we went over ask. There, it's happening.
Yeah.
And we're using the California Dream for All program, which I'll talk about.
Love to get into that new program. Really great.
Yeah, it's very good. But yeah, buyer traffic is on the rise, and the problem is, the majority of the articles I keep reading is it seems like the depreciation over the last 7 to 8 months has hit a halt in a position because for quite some time it's kind of like a payment shock. It's like you get 4, 5, 6, 7% interest rate.
Right,
this is too much. And then now we've been hovering in the mid to high 6 range, and it hasn't been moving too crazy.
Quite some time, at least. Stability compared to how it was just on that increase from last year, right? But yeah,
and like what we say, it's like we all get used to it. I mean, now it's like I can't even remember like what 2s and 3s are like, because it's like I can't even put my head in that headspace, because this is not going to happen. Right. Very well could not in my entire rest of my career. But I mean, people are people, and the reason why we buy homes is not just because of interest rates.
No,
it's coming to light right now.
We'd love to have a deal if we can. We can recognize when we look at the interest rates and we're thinking, man, we'd love that 2 and 3% again. But
sure.
If you're going to just sit there and pay rent for another 1, 2, 3 years, you start to sit on your hands and go, this isn't budging very much, is it? So, and we need a room for grandma, and the baby's on the way, or life happens. So,
have you even noticed? You mentioned something very interesting. Is that I've noticed with a lot of buyers that's become more and more apparent, especially after COVID. I think the necessity of having all of your family closer in general has become more of a priority, and I think that's another reason why buyers are buyers, not just because of interest rates, right?
Absolutely.
So I'm sure you've talked to many of your buyers, and it's like, say like 1 out of the last 5 deals I've done is like 20%. It's like I'm looking for a home that also has enough room for my family, my parents or my grandparents, or something to that degree.
Just the clients I was helping out this weekend, we were looking at homes, and number one on the list is they needed a 4-bedroom because their mother-in-law was living with them, or
Right.
they've also had the wife of the family, she works from home, so she needs an office space.
That's another thing.
If it's not necessarily a bedroom, it
Yeah.
at least has to be some type of den or some type of extra. It's like we were looking at some new builds in Plumas Lake, and it's like one of the houses was even though the price was a little more digestible, let's say,
Sure,
it was off the table because one had three beds and a 2-bath, but the other one had 3 beds, the den, and the 2-bath. So it's like having that den for the office space. That was the at least between those two, that was the one that was more feasible.
I've had that. I mean, on the financing side, I mean, I always like to get murmurs from the agent side. Like, I always like to get a little bit more insight, because I feel like the more knowledge I have, the better I can understand the whole situation,
Right.
In general. Because I mean, numbers also articulate to tangibles like real estate, like we were talking about a week or 2 weeks ago, where it's like getting pre-approved is so important to be able to establish that budget, because a $500,000 budget is a different tangible look than a $800,000 tangible look.
Of course.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
right.
it's apparent. It's always good to know more. But so we had an increase in sold units, but a decrease in for sale on the market.
Correct. And keeping this in mind too, we are still seeing quite low inventory. That has to be added to. We're seeing high sales, but still with a low. I mean, we're talking higher sales, but we went from 1,114 to 1,329. So we're increasing by a couple hundred, which again, we're covering 3 whole counties here. That's still just
Not a ton.
Yeah, it's not a whole lot is flying off, but it is an increase. It's
I
based
would
on the sample size.
Well, there's only so much can be consumed based on how much supply is out there too.
Yeah.
And I'm sure the majority of those, I mean, a good chunk of those listings, I mean, some of them may not even be habitable. Some of them may be out of majority of the people's price range over like 800,000. I'd say after that it gets really sticky.
Right.
You got to have definitely double dual income with at least $9,000 a piece.
Sure.
It's getting to that point. So it's like, it's all about it. It's the supply factor. That's why, I mean, I think that's the main reason what I've been reading in terms of articles, what's coming on in terms of depreciation versus are we going to continue decline? It's like supply. Got to go to the basics. I've said it almost every podcast. Supply and demand determine value.
Yes. It
Hands down.
always boils down to that at the end of the day.
Right. So I think I've said this a billion times, but everyone's got low interest rates in their homes.
Yeah.
So why would they get into something else? But thankfully, not everyone has that. I mean, the woman out we were talking with on the phone prior to the podcast didn't have that.
No.
So it's just, I mean, there's certain events, and it'll get better in terms of supply, but it's allowing for home buyers to not be concerned about a mass crash, because if you got a fixed low supply and it's not getting any higher, it's like you really don't have anything to worry about in terms of like being underwater in your mortgage versus the value. So that's what people are concerned about,
Right?
not having any skin in the game, if you will. But we're not. That's what everyone's concerned about. We're not seeing that really.
No, not really. And that's a good point, where it's like with this inventory so low, that is in a sense that buffer of the crash, where it's like this value is still retaining because of just this commodity is still so, at least at this moment, there's just not a whole lot out there. So people that want it. And so it's like, the buyer pool may not be pandemic start huge, but it's big enough to where it's still,
like before,
exactly. So
Yeah.
but it's enough to climb, and still, to your point, I mean, you said you had an above listing offer situation that you were dealing with.
It was $449 was the list price, and we ended up settling at $465. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep. Exactly the same thing with the clients I was working with. When it came down to starting to talk about the offer and picking out the houses, they themselves brought up, well, if it's this list price, we'd probably be smart to go over it because they had some headroom in their loan to what they're looking for. And I'm like,
price.
Exactly. So I'm
all
like,
about it.
If that's what if that's comfortable for you, that's not a terrible strategy at all, because we are seeing some some raise in buyers being out there. So,
And it's what's nice too is that it's not as like the multiple offers are thought out and logistical, the exact opposite of what it was like in 2020 and 2021. And the main reason, I mean, the biggest reason back then was people had a lot more cash offers. A lot of people, like, because their equity position was just gnarly.
Yeah.
So more often than not now, offers that are coming in involve financing. As we know, with financing, they have appraisal contingencies. And if you don't hit that appraisal value, if you're offering 500 and it gets appraised at 475, now you're in a pickle. Because the lender's only going to take the lesser of the two.
Right.
So that's just something to consider. And that's why it's logistical and we went over, but we did it in a way that, like, it's like we cannot go over this, but it's also it's kind of bringing normalcy in, like, if there was a big spike in terms of that, it's not going to be crazy like it was before, because if you have contingencies in place to keep yourself grounded that way, then it doesn't get so crazy.
Right.
Like, you're going $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 over, which I've heard.
And removing your contingencies.
You're going to get year-over-year appreciation levels of 20%. Because if you're going that high all the time with throwing out contingencies, it's like, money was flowing like water.
Yeah.
And it's just
wild
things are
times.
contracting. And it doesn't benefit the small guy, but it benefits the market long term, if that makes sense.
Yes. Yeah.
Because, we need sustainability. So
it's a correction that I feel like was put in place to avoid something like 2008, right? Where it's like the correction is necessary. And unfortunately, like you said, it contracts, it makes it where, unfortunately, people that are just getting into the market to buy for the first time, they're the ones that are kind of getting the short stick. I'd say at first, temporarily. It's, again, the market ebbs and flows. So
100%.
your time is coming. It's coming kind of quick too. So,
Yeah, I mean, moving on to, like, just interest rates in general. I didn't get to talk about it in the last podcast. The last one was with Jax. But the rates, I mean, quoting rates, it's interesting right now, but it's, I mean, I would say for conventional, you're looking at the mid to high sixes, and then FHA, low to mid sixes, VA around the same.
Okay.
You could be, I would say very low sixes for FHA and VA on average. Not bad. It's just not really, it's not moving up which way or sideways, but it did improve quite a bit in the past. 2 weeks ago, I guess in terms of like month over month, we probably have an improvement in rates to about 0.5%. And the reason why I forgot to touch on this the last time is because right now, most investors, given the volatility of the stock market, they're moving over to the bond market to make things very simple to understand. Bond market, I talk about mortgage-backed securities. It's a bunch of like kind mortgages. Say you got $500,000 conventional mortgages that make up a total with similar terms, similar borrower requirements, all wrapped up in a $10 million bond. Investors, what they've been doing is they're moving their stock money over to the bond market where they're getting a 3%. They're getting a lot lower appreciation, but it's low risk, low reward type of thing to cover their ass during the volatility. So in the mortgage world, we call that what's called a flight to quality or flight to safety. So that's one of the reasons why rates have improved. Also, the recent taking a quarter off the rate instead of 0.5% due to the banking situation going on right now. So we'll have to see where rates go. But given there's just a lot of things up in the air that's thrown up, like the banking situation that's been going on with SVB and Suisse. And I found out from my bank, the U.S. Bank absorbed Union Bank.
Oh, wow.
Another thing that was interesting is that I got a private loan Friday actually. And he got a call. He was working a commercial loan with Citizens Bank. They call him out of the blue and say, we're shutting off our commercial lending division entirely. It's out of the blue.
Wow.
Yeah. So things are getting tightened up.
Yeah.
Mainly because a lot of these banks' balance sheets are not looking amazing. But one thing to be sure is that I always recommend to people just don't have any money, don't have any more than $250,000 if you have a personal account in your bank because that's all the amount the FDIC will be able to insure. Pro tip. Don't hold any more in a personal account specifically.
Yes.
Because that's the majority of us. But
yeah,
I mean, rates are holding well. Still not, I mean, super low. But at the end of the day, I'm just liking that it's not crazy volatile where I'm like, oh, it dropped. I gotta lock it. Or it's like
I was about to say it seems like we're seeing that 6 in front of it at least for quite some
more
time.
often.
Yeah.
Right, I mean, of course, there's some situations you might be in the 7s, maybe.
Right.
For a multitude of reasons, which I've talked about a few times as to how your interest rate is determined, because everyone has different needs and down payments, credit scores, debt to income ratios, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But moving on to that, I wanted to talk about, I mentioned it, but the Dream for All program.
Yeah, let's dive in.
Super, super cool. So like I was telling you, I got my first one to contract today.
Nice.
And I've been working with her for a couple of years now. Super awesome. She's got a cute little family, super sweet young autistic son. And they're buying in Rockland. That's, if you don't know, that's in Placer County. But yeah, so essentially what the program is, to wrap it up very closely, is it's going to be a 20% down payment assistance loan.
Right.
Just starting from there, you can do a split of say 15% down, and then 5% to cover closing costs and fees, origination, stuff like that. So it's very cool. You can do 100%, don't have to bring anything out of pocket. The one thing to consider is earnest money deposits, as we know, comes from the buyer. As long as the buyer is using their own funds, their earnest money deposit, that can be reimbursed at close. So it's very cool. So if you're working with this program, maybe have an EMD of like $500 or $1,000 just to keep things limited.
Right.
Because obviously, if you need down payment assistance, down payment's kind of the struggling issue at hand.
That's the factor, right? The upfront.
The one thing to consider too is it's a shared appreciation type of loan. So to make it very simple, like let's use in my video that I made, I use $100,000 sales price. Before you tell me that's not a realistic sales price in California, I'm well aware. I work within it, but I'm using it for simplicity reasons.
Makes the math make sense. Let's do it that way.
It's for
makes the math easy.
Everyone's benefit in this room.
If you'd like to pull out a calculator and put it on California price, home of your choice.
Yeah, you can fact check me if you want.
Then call me. I'll help you.
So moving on. So going on to that. So we have our 20% down payment assistance, right? So let's use $100,000 sales price.
Sure.
We have our $20,000, which would be our down payment assistance in this scenario, and then it's a shared equity, shared appreciation type of program. So in the instance of selling, transferring, or refinancing after your second time, which I'll explain, is you have to pay off that silent second, which is the 20% down payment assistance plus any that 20% appreciation. So say you sold it for $200,000, right? So from the time of which you purchased the home, sold the home, $100,000 in equity. If you bought it for $100, sold it for $200.
Right.
So you have the $20,000 from the down payment assistance loan.
Yes.
And then you got 20% appreciation that gets paid back. So the total is, drum roll please, 40 grand.
40,000.
Right. So that's in the instance of that. So what the cool thing is about this program is that it's a silent second, and you don't have to pay on that second. So you don't have to calculate within your I don't have to calculate within your debt to income ratio.
Wow.
Also that silent, so you don't have to make any payments on that. And what's really, really cool is that down the road, I actually found this out and got confirmation is that you'll be able to refinance after making 12 months of on-time payments in what's called it's subordinating the second. So essentially what that means is you don't have to pay off the second altogether and lump it into one loan. You get one opportunity to refinance it without touching that second, so you don't have an LTV issue. Yeah, so LTV meaning loan to value, because with conventional loans, you can only go up to a certain loan to value in order to account for your equity to pay off remaining items like another second.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's really, really nice. So if rates do improve after a year time, after making 12 months of payments, not being 12 months in the loan, 12 months of payments, you'll be able to subordinate per Cali HFA and Fannie Mae selling guidelines. I always like to say that because that's the technical way of saying it. Yeah, it's very, very cool. And the rates are actually they're actually pretty good. Like today, the rate for the program was 6.125 conventional.
Oh,
Yeah.
Not bad.
Not bad at all.
Not bad at all.
Yeah. So you have and what's also, you don't have to do a split either. So if you wanted to put any of your money down towards closing costs, you can. So you can do 20% down payment assistance and not have any mortgage insurance whatsoever. It's pretty sweet, right?
Yeah.
So you don't. So like
Wow, that's actually really cool.
right?
Yeah.
So like, I mean, for most people, they have the ability to bring up at least closing costs because it's usually like 2 to 5%
Sure.
of the sales price. But doing that on top of like a 5% down payment or a 3% down payment,
Sure.
it's just an additional that some people may or may not cover.
Yeah.
So you can forego the mortgage insurance entirely. I have one of my clients that are doing that and it's dropping their payment. I've been noticing the mortgage insurance is usually around 90 to 120 bucks, which helps a lot if you don't have to have that monthly.
Right.
Yeah. It's been a great program so far. I just think it's going to go really fast. People are talking about there's 300 million allocated. Everything that I read, and it was in the Cal HFA handbook. So I think it's right. I noticed it was 500 million, but still they're estimating it to only help around 2,300 families. So if this sounds fascinating, or if one of your clients found it fascinating, it only rolled out just a week ago. So get on it.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Seriously.
It's not even like a pushy thing. It's like,
if you want
it's a sweet program.
Start doing it.
It's a sweet. The only caveat is the shared appreciation. But the way I see it is if you get an opportunity to refinance one time, that's huge.
Yeah.
Because you can drop, because that's the only payment you're paying on anyways is your first mortgage. It's a silent second, so you're not even have to pay on that. So what matters
until the back end, right?
Right, until the back end. So it's something that you'll probably want to look at it for, like, you want to think about being in this home for at least 7 years. That's the way, 5 to 7 years, because that's usually when you have enough appreciation to where it's worthwhile to even sell in the first place. Right. But obviously I don't have a crystal ball, nor do you.
Nope.
But based on a appreciating market the last 7 months, and now we're kind of hitting a backstop in terms of, like, I mean, I'm just reading it, like year over year depreciation nationally was only 0.2%.
Yeah, right.
So it's like on the grand scheme of things, I mean, I think we're probably in a good position going into the future for appreciation, which in a small part of me, you almost want it to like simmer down just so you can, like, because people, like, everyone's talking about the prices are too high and stuff like that. But this is a great program to be able to bridge that, because a 20% down payment is pretty dang substantial.
I mean,
you were talking $100,000 for a $500,000 purchase price.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a lot. Right.
That's a huge help. And I was going to say, just for the fact that it's come at this type of market that we're in, it's kind of huge, because me personally, just boots on the ground, more anecdotal, a lot of clients that I run into being in the first time home buyer kind of shoes, it's like that's always tends to be the biggest problem, is just usually it's either upfront or getting that monthly payment to be affordable, right? To make it make sense for them to leap from renting to owning. So it's like, I mean, if you could get into a house that's, you know, 500,000, 400,000, and it's covering $100,000, $80,000 for you, you know, for that down payment, that's huge.
It's huge. And
it gets your foot in the door, at least.
Yeah. And before I forget, I just wanted to kind of list out kind of just like some general guidelines for people that are interested, just so they can know. So you got to have a minimum credit score of 680 in order to qualify for this program. You have to be a first-time home buyer as well, which by Cal HFA, they determine that by you cannot have had any ownership interest in the last 3 years, which is pretty sweet. So, because technically you don't have to be a first time home buyer,
right?
And also you're going to be in a position where, this is on my end, but if you're past 700 credit score, you can go up to a 50% debt to income ratio, so you can go up higher in terms of your budget. If you're under 700, it's going to be 45. And you cannot exceed the county income limits, which in Placer County, it's 202. I would have to check for Sacramento, but I know it's over 150 grand, which is nice because it gives a lot. I mean, with 202 grand, you can actually qualify for a good amount of home. The problem is with a lot of these down payment assistance programs is that they usually can't exceed like 80% of area median income. And that's only like, in Placer County, it's only 80 grand. And there's only so much you can afford, especially a good amount of debt.
Yeah.
You're limited on your income, or you're limited on how much income that you can even achieve, and therefore how much you can qualify for anyways.
Right.
So depending on your area, it may just not make sense at all.
Right. The
Period.
program just doesn't. Yeah.
It just doesn't add up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, great program. If you're interested, talk with me or Chris, and we could be happy to help with you, of course.
Always.
The one thing I just wanted to mention was because we kept talking about like backstop and stuff like that. Because I was reading an article saying that February we got a 14.5% increase in home sales. This is the first type of increase in the last 12 months. So if that doesn't indicate something for you, then you must not be listening to the podcast, because things are moving.
Go catch up. At least watch our reels. Come on.
I honestly, right? Exactly. Yeah. Watch the damn reels. Huh? But yeah, it's changing. It's interesting to see, considering that the rates are where they are.
Yeah.
But I keep going down to the basics. When you just don't have a lot of supply, it's going to stay firm. And if you get the springtime surge coming in, there's going to be more absorption of those homes. Mm-hmm. It's simple plus and minus based on a not so much varying denominator.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's just, yeah, I hate to say I told you so,
Exactly.
but it's just, unfortunately, it's just the reality. I mean, real estate, and especially given the banking situation, especially given the volatility within the stock market, yeah, and pretty much equities, etc. Everyone and big investors, they're investing in the bond market. Therefore, it's a indirect and direct way of them investing into real estate. So guess what? Even the most knowledgeable, experienced investors in the world with the biggest portfolios move into real estate.
Yep.
Because guess what? It is by far the strongest asset class. That, and I would say that and gold.
Yeah.
Yeah. That and gold.
Yep.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to need land.
It's true. It's true. There's only so much of it.
Yeah.
There's only one earth.
Yeah.
Yep. But
the asset of kings and queens.
But yeah, is there anything else market wise you want to talk about? Did you hit? Oh, didn't you? You had some showings this weekend, right?
I did. Yeah. So I had some showings this weekend with a young family couple, first time home buyer, looking in.
I love first time home buyers.
Oh,
man.
they're the best.
They're so fun.
They're the best because
they're sponges.
They're sponges, exactly. And it's like we get, we're nerds about this stuff, so they're the best. They're the most receptive to us being able to advise and help and just, they'll ask questions that we just take for granted, which is what I love, because sometimes they'll ask something that's like, I thought that was, like either to me, it's like I'm talking with dudes that are in the industry all the time. So it's like, you might throw things like LTV, DTI, right? Just all these just days on market, DOM, this, all this stuff.
It's
and they're like, what is this? What is that?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, okay, let me help you out. Yeah. But anyway, so we get to Plumas Lake and, just given their situation, a lot of things that we're talking about, that's echoing where it's like, they're just in a situation where they're tired of renting. They want to get into home ownership. That's what makes sense to them, and that's their main motivation. Like I said, they had mother-in-law that needed to move in with them, working from home. So they're just trying to look at what makes sense. They looked at the Plumas Lake area. They looked in Sacramento County.
That's
so
they're varying.
Yeah. Well, they're open. Well, the thing about Plumas Lake that I notice is for the actual price point of those properties, I think house-wise, pound for pound, you get more out of it, right? Pound for pound, yeah. Square footage-wise, what you'd have, usually it seems like you get more value for the house itself. But being in Plumas Lake, it comes down to location. It feels like you're kind of far from things. Like, stores 15 minutes away, or you've got to drive 30 minutes. If you work in Sacramento, Roseville,
location, right?
Yeah. All these basic things. It's crazy.
Basics. Hey, that's why you got
the fundamentals.
That's why everyone says go back to the basics when it gets all crazy, right? Just go back to the basics.
Build from there.
Yeah.
But no, we did great, and I wanted to bring up this topic. We were kind of talking about it.
Yeah.
that it just struck me as it was kind of funny. It was interesting. It was something I started to think about as we were going by. So originally we saw maybe one or two properties that were just your traditional either vacant or kind of appointment only type of situation where we get there, either the seller was there, just letting us kind of glance at it, get through, and also had a vacant one, but they also wanted to check out some new builds, right?
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And so being at some new builds,
what area? Sorry to interrupt.
Oh no! So we were for
the new
this was the
builds.
Plumas Lake. Plumas Lake was
Lake
mostly
new
the
builds?
new builds. Yeah,
Okay.
we saw maybe one property that was a newer one, but that one was finished probably I think I want to say it was like only 2 years old.
Okay,
so it
so
wasn't
not like a
technically
new
Yeah,
build.
not a new, but we did see some new actual builds as well.
Okay.
And so we went and saw some KB, some Richmond American, and also
How pushy were they?
Yeah. So I won't say who's who or who's part of which organization, but KB, Richmond American, these other places, and something that was just funny was just the way we interacted with agents. Part of them because their job, they're at the office.
Yeah.
Obviously, they're trying to do their job to sell these houses, but just the different approaches that they went. And I was and I was kind of a fly on the wall of watching how they went about, talking to my clients, trying to give service to my clients, trying to what have you. And my clients would comment every time we met these agents afterwards, how they felt about it. And they obviously had some various different comments.
Come on,
and
spill the beans, spill the tea.
I took a sponge. I took notes, right? But
I took notes.
let's say
This guy was a prick.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Well, just
What not to do.
Let's say that. So, we'll just go 1, 2, 3. I won't say who's where or what, but first new build we go
throw it
to.
out there. Throw names, address, brokerage.
Yeah, right. Yeah, DRE number. I'll show you his picture.
Get him.
Yeah, no.
Nah,
So,
matter.
first build we go to, younger guy, came in super enthusiastic. I get it. When I'm at an open house, you're kind of like figuring out who's who. So the first guy is very enthusiastic at first, but of course I introduce myself. Hey, I'm Christopher. I'm from eXp Realty. Obviously, I'm the agent representing them, right? I didn't say that, but that's what that was, right?
Sure.
And so it felt like he just got totally cold after that, where it's it kind of, which I get it, it's like, but it was a little too much. Yeah.
You kind of give we're not really that interested in this property type of thing.
Yeah. Well, no, this was just at the office meeting them and trying to get access to the model homes.
Oh, this is prior to even
getting to the home. So this is the dude at the office, right?
Oh,
so,
because you were
I'm
I
the
know
buyer's.
exactly why he's being that
yeah,
way,
exactly.
though.
So I'm the buyer's agent with my clients coming to the new builds. Whereas if they came by themselves,
different
right?
story.
Right. So, but I'm there obviously. So I'm like, hey, Christopher, introduce. Yeah. So obviously he's all happy, trying to figure out who we are. He knows I'm the agent, and all of a sudden, very cold. The temperature and his enthusiasm dipped, to say the least.
Go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
Chris.
Yeah. Kind of said it without saying it, but
Sure.
But then, of course, we still wanted to see the model home, so we're asking questions, this and that. I'm trying to do my best for the clients, and yeah, it just felt like it was noticeable how much he changed. So that kind of rubbed me the wrong way, where it's like, hey, even if we do this all the time,
like you almost don't care at all if you don't have any sort of finger in the pie, which is a terrible way to carry yourself, because we've talked
it's
about
so
in the past,
noticeable. Yeah,
enjoy it in the moment and don't expect immediate return. You're gonna just be a prick now,
Yeah.
because you don't have an opportunity for a sale to snatch someone up. It's like, come on.
Yeah, it's a low blow, and it just goes to show kind of the character there, which and
who knows, maybe his wife packed him a ham sandwich instead of a turkey. It had a bad month.
Maybe just have a bad day. Who knows? Exactly. You got to give people the benefit of the doubt.
Sure.
But we ended up seeing the model homes. We had some other ones to look out, so we're just piling on the list. So it feels almost like the Three Little Pigs story here. So right through the Three Little Salesmen.
That's kind of funny. That's funny. I like that.
So now on to model house number 2, right? So we go to the next batch of model houses.
Number 2.
So this one, I would say, was the opposite. We get there. It's funny. We actually get there first, and no one was in the office. It was just the doors were open. It was probably around like 11:30, 11:45.
Is this on a Saturday?
Sunday.
Okay.
Yeah.
Still.
Yesterday. So we get there, doors are wide open, no one's in there, and we're just kind of like, But we noticed that the model home was like connected to the garage, and that's the model they wanted to look at. So we just opened the door, and we're like, well, it's open, so we'll just take a look. You know, hey.
Sure.
We'll ask for forgiveness before permission in that situation.
Sure.
But we saw it was all great. He came back. He wasn't mad or anything, of course. But he rolled up. At first, he was actually very helpful. I'll say he just gave some advice about all the different houses, different properties. Mm-hmm. Told us to go look at this one, go look at that one. We went, looked at the second one, and I would say right off the bat, this was like a 2-story. This was already kind of pushing the limit, I'd say, of my client's qualification, where their headroom wouldn't be too great. Like we're just like kind of right at it, or possibly even beyond a little bit, right?
Sure, yeah.
So just keeping that realistic, and they knew that, and we both knew that. So that being said, we get out, and so then he's there. Obviously, he wants some feedback, wants to know how it went and all that. Mm-hmm. And I mean, as far as temperature go, this guy was just like, would not let go, like just ultra trying to close and be super pushy just right then and there, where it's like
used car sales a little bit.
Yeah. Oh man. So yeah, where it's just, he's just like, okay, I think
there's such thing as good energy and too much energy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And so he was just way too, and after the fact, he did a total 180, where it's like after we saw the house. And so he's like, I think he just outright asked, which I'm like, it's a decent close, but I just don't think in that situation, he was just like, oh, so do you want it? And they're like,
buy it now.
Yeah, right. And he's like, well, what?
Or get off my property.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, well, do you want it? And they're like, well, sure, yeah, this and that, maybe, but we have to. There's a lot of
just
details.
Curious, but was he younger or older?
He was actually a little older. He seemed like he was probably about 40, maybe in his 40s.
Huh.
Yeah.
I don't have any takeaways from that. Continue with your story.
Yeah. Were you assuming it was younger?
No, I mean, I'm trying. I mean, I don't think there's really any sort of like age association when it comes to like being more pushy or more quiet. I think people just attach to what has worked for them in the past, and maybe that's worked with them in the past.
Sure.
And maybe he's only done new builds, and that's usually how they get things done, or they're just used to the 2020 and 2021 type of market.
Sure.
Who knows? But yeah,
right.
I mean, it's tough to say where someone picked up their strategies,
right?
So, but I was just curious,
of course, but different feelings that kind of are coming off of that. And so first one we went to, my clients felt after the fact like, oh, he was kind of rude, Second one, oh my God, that guy was so pushy. You know what I mean? That they literally are saying this after we're kind of out of earshot of these people and going to the next one, right? Mm-hmm. And so I'm thinking like, yeah, I felt that
it's
too.
Like almost not feeling like we're not crazy, right? That was really pushy.
Yeah. And so it was kind of a cool fly on the wall scenario. So then third one, final one,
third time's the charm, or no?
Third time's the charm. Yeah, no. Well, they ended up not getting into these properties or really putting these on top of their list, but I think they used one of them as kind of a backup situation of thinking mentality. But so we're at this third one. Now this guy, talk about used car salesman. I mean, not so much as the pushy part, but just would not pause for a moment to stop talking. Like it was just
90-10 robot for himself.
Yeah. He was taking the whole 100. Yeah. He just
he created an addendum for just your extra questions.
And I have to give the guy credit for he's trying to be helpful. He really was. He was trying to be helpful, but it was to the point where it was information overload. We came in, it was kind of like the new build, but since it was a Sunday, they're kind of holding it as like an open house where he's just kind of there. People are just walking in, right? And so he's just going on and on and on and on and on about information and how they do things and how they do this and how they do that. And here's this and here's that. And we're going, and it's been like 5 minutes and the clients haven't even, this is just in the kitchen. Like the clients haven't even had a chance to like go to the bedroom or go to this or go to there. And so he's just going and going and going and going. And finally I kind of just like asked a question to just like, just halt him like for a second. Right.
At some point in his,
maybe that was a mistake because it's going to keep him going. But like, And then they're walking around and he's still just kind of trailing them and just saying things and commenting things. And I just noticed, and same thing. So after we got done with that, it's like my client actually literally said, like, he reminded me of a used car salesman, just like how much it was.
They said that?
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
funny.
I don't think as much as how pushy, but just the how much he was talking and just kind of the energy he was giving off.
And going back to like what we're talking about, like just not trying to get something done right then and there, and just being a resource and just enjoying it in the moment, because people are human and they're like, I want to talk to this guy without having to worry if, like, all right, what's he going to try and push onto me today?
Yeah.
What's he going to try and sell onto me today?
Right.
Because I have a few people in my contact. I'm like, I don't really want to call them until it's like, I absolutely need to.
Absolutely.
Because I know it's going to be like, bro, like, how can we get this going for you? Like, yeah. It's like, dude, simmer down.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
You know
it's
those
just,
types.
It's, and actually today too, I've got, I had a coaching call, and one of the greatest kind of topics of today and the wisdom that he was giving was that it's like, as a salesperson, you have to realize that since you are a salesperson and people understand that, you already have this initial, almost what he describes as like sale pressure, where it's like when you're coming into a conversation, you almost need to over exaggerate the fact that you are willing to work against your own interest if it helps them. Like, you need to put that in the forefront.
I couldn't agree more with that.
Yeah, and if that doesn't come across, that's when things are pushy and the pressure goes up and up and up and up, and people are just like, "Oh my god!" Yeah,
because that communicates that you're truly working in their best interest. It's
Correct.
not in trying to band-aid it every single step of the way to just keep it to get that commission, the commission breath type of deal.
Commission breath, exactly.
Yeah, and it's not
people
ideal.
smell it. You're not slick. That's the thing. And that's why it was so funny to be that fly on the wall, because obviously in person they're very nice and they're very cordial, because everyone is. Everyone wants to be polite. But once we start walking away and we're out of earshot, they're like, "Oh my gosh, that guy was just like down my throat. Like, I hated that, you know?"
Right. I hated that.
Like it was just like, and it's just like, man, I get it, you know?
And I feel like sometimes pushiness can also rear its ugly head when you're in desperation.
Yes.
Because like if you're in a position, like I know when I was just got into the business, I'm talking like 3 months, I'm like ready to go. Let's do some
just
loans.
full of piss and vinegar.
Oh
You're
yeah,
ready
like
to
you're
go.
fired
Yeah.
up. Like
Yeah.
I'm ready to do some loans. But man, I left a lot of money on the table because I didn't have, sometimes it was like I had this one deal. I cannot mess this up. In other words, like during refi season, like a lot of people were taking, like there was a lot going on with adjusting compensation, stuff like that. There was a couple of guys, older guys, that took me for a ride, and I got paid practically nothing.
Oof.
And my dad brought me aside and was like, "You'll do better on that next time, won't you?" Like, yeah, I will.
Yeah.
Because it was just a situation where it was like, it's better than nothing, but like, it's not. But for me, it's like, that's also relays very, very well when it comes to your clients. And because like, you don't have to have a ton of business to not be desperate either.
Yeah.
Because desperation, it rears its ugly head when you can just tell it's just all about the commissions. All about that. It's all about that.
It really seeps into, I guess I could say, just people can feel it. Like,
Feel
it's just
the
an energy.
100%.
Yeah, it's just when you're just so like, yeah.
Here's an example. Like there was one open house I was hosting, and they were touring with their agent.
Okay.
And the property had like clearly some problems with it. And it was kind of like everything they said that was negative, she always had a way to spin it in a positive, to where it was like, "Oh, don't worry about it. It's not like, it's kind of like brushing it off, and like,
Sure.
it's like everything will be
Diminishing
okay.
it or
Everything will be okay.
downsizing it. Yeah,
Instead
yeah.
of being like, you know what? That is a problem. There is a way. What I can do is I can get a quote for us and figure
Right.
out what the ramifications are, so we can make an informed decision as a collective group.
Hear your options rather
Right.
than this. No, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Because
Yeah.
if you like the house, we want to make sure the bones are good. There's no active infestations. There's noticeable acts that you take that people, it's just like, okay, that was a cool move.
Right.
Like he's really just going above and beyond just to make me feel comfortable in what I'm getting into.
Yes.
And I think it's just so apparent to our business just because there's so much money on the table. There's livelihoods, there's moving families, there's just so much that they rely on us for. So it's just more so to be that more genuine person.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
It's huge. It's huge because any mistakes or lapse in trust can be detrimental to a transaction.
Yeah.
Where again, like you said, you're dealing with people's livelihoods. Really, they're literally uprooting their home and moving it elsewhere. So
Yeah. And I think when it comes to pushiness and talking fast, I also think that comes with also not listening.
Yes.
Which also relays back to you and being a lot less effective in helping your clients.
Absolutely.
Because if you're just always trying to talk, always trying to make it right, always trying to make the right, always trying to just be like, everything is just geared towards getting paid.
Yes.
And it's like, oh, if you're actually in contract and you're not listening, and then that you could be liable on your app. Like there could be legal implications if you don't listen correctly. What if you put in the contract a contingency that the buyer said, I want that in there, and you accidentally forgone that? I mean, I spoke briefly about it in the last couple of podcasts, but agents have been getting sued because of throwing out contingencies. You wonder if it was something that it was just like steadfast on, just got to get the sale. Just got to get it. Just got to get it. Just got to get it.
Right.
Instead of being like, you know what? I don't care what the market's doing. My fiduciary duty is to my client and to make sure they're protected. So yeah, I'm going to put a contingency in place so they can inspect the home
every time. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I think that's a great analogy in real life. But
a saying that I've heard a lot and I really like is, you've got 2 ears and 1 mouth. You should use them proportionately.
I like that.
Yeah.
I've never heard that. That makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense.
Yep. And going back to listening, it's like, how can you even provide value to your clients or to anyone if you don't know what is valuable to them? You haven't discussed that. You haven't listened to what that is, right? You assume, you project rather than just like, hey, what do you guys need? Like, what can I do to help you? What can we do? What do you need? Right. And it's like, okay, this and this. Well, here's what I can do. Options. What do you think about that? What would be best for you? Right.
And most of the time we'll be able to streamline the process too.
Yeah, exactly. It's just you eliminate all the fluff that doesn't matter to them or to what is important, right? That isn't important.
Yeah.
So.
I was just thinking about
art of listening.
Absolutely. I was just thinking about a firsthand experience. Like, I've had a borrower where it's like, I don't want to go above 2,400 period on my total monthly payment. Of course, insurance varies, etc. But predominantly, your total mortgage payment's not going to vary all that much. It's not going to be varying by like $400 or $500.
Sure,
maybe like $30 to $75.
Sure,
give or take. So if they said, you know what, Sam, like I don't feel comfortable going anything higher than 2,400, then you have a firm budget, and then you'd be like, well, this is the purchase price you're at, and they're like, oh, maybe I'm not ready yet. Then you both eliminated a lot of wasted potential time.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Because sometimes it's not just about what's my max budget. How about maybe you can qualify for a 500, but maybe you just want a $2,800 total monthly payment, including principal, interest, tax, and insurance. So it can save each and every one of your time.
Absolutely. Art of listening. It's huge. It's huge. I think it should just be the gold standard of how things should get
Robert,
done.
can we have an art of listening just go right above us? Art of listening.
Can it sparkle?
Yeah, sparkle. You were just talking about trust.
Yeah.
And going back, I think trust and building long-term relationships, I think this can go really back to avoiding being pushy. Because if you're in a position, if you're talking to your clients, like the one I got into contract, I've been working through for 2 years, and it's more so okay, you're not quite ready here, but here are the steps that we need to do in the short term. Then after you pass that step, then we move on to that next step. And it's more of just like, there's no sense in being pushy if you are not financially and mentally ready, and that's on my side.
Right.
And if on your side, if they are financially and mentally ready, and they're just in a position where they're like, like the things I see on the market, I'm not quite ready. You can advise and say like things will come up. However, I don't want to put you in a home you don't want.
No.
What's the point in that? Like,
No.
there's no point. And then they come back to you and they're like, "Hey, Chris, look what I found." And they come directly back to you because
you gave them that space
you
and they
didn't
remember
say
that.
like,
yeah.
hold on, let me try. What about this one? What about this one? It's like, you know what? Like, of course, do your drip campaigns, let them know. But at the end of the day, it's all about helping them.
Right. And I think to your point, I think there's a difference between being resourceful and maybe even being a problem solver where it's like, because something I think is, let's say, kind of a made up scenario, but it's something that could happen all the time where it's like buyers will come to me and say, well, okay, I like this house or this or that, but here's X problem. And if I know some options that could potentially fix X problem, then I would just say, hey, well, actually, here's some options.
Right. You don't just give up because
if that makes sense to you, but that's the caveat. If that makes sense to you, not me, if it makes sense to you, right?
Right.
So
that's part of being an advisor, of course.
Of course, right?
Yeah.
Doing your due diligence and finding solutions, and because that might be something they didn't even think of. And they go, oh, wow, actually,
right.
Let's actually do that instead, right? But again, that's much different than trying to fit a square peg in a round hole,
trying
right?
to coerce them into doing something versus providing all the evidence and information and providing all the resources they needed to make it. Your job is to provide them with the resources on both of our sides, resources and information to be able to make an informed decision on their end regarding what their needs are with them and their family, etc. Because all we do is we streamline it for them. And also legality wise, and on accessibility wise on my end, because you don't have $500,000 cash, or you don't want to be in a position where you come back and there was an issue with it. You don't have a contract to fall back on. You don't have a broker that is liable for it, that has insurance, etc. So, yeah, we're here to be a resource, not to be car salesmen, because that's why we have car salesmen.
Yeah,
for that reason.
I'm sure there's some good car salesmen out there, though.
Yeah,
ones that aren't too bad. But
yeah, there's.
I guess that's the go-to punching bag of the.
I know a couple loan officers that were car salesmen. It's very apparent, which it's just weird to be that way when it comes to mortgages, because at the end of the day, you're not selling anything. You're putting them in the most ideal program for them. It's not about selling them on something,
right?
At least for me. I mean, I'm more so. I think it's more about selling yourself, and if you are generally who you are, and it shouldn't be that difficult, and it's just consistency, time, and just not being an asshole.
Oh yeah. Well, I think that's a good place to wrap it up. What do you think?
I think so. That was a good one. But yeah, if you guys haven't, subscribe,
please,
comment, like, do all the things, and yeah, I think that's a wrap for episode 8, Market Matters Podcast.
Absolutely. Another one in the books, guys. We'll see you next time.
See you later, guys.